said, "Gentlemen, right as of now, you're no longer Cowboy football players."
In 1969, a planned protest against BYU and the Mormon Church led to the dismissal of 14 Black University of Wyoming football players. This documentary is on the Black 14. The 1960s were a time of turmoil. News broadcasts and papers continually covered protests against the Vietnam War. Women's rights are at the forefront. Civil rights demonstrations and riots were constant reminders that this was a time of change. Here in the Equality State, civil rights, freedom of speech, and religion were being called into question. Various civil rights activists sought new tools in the fight and struggle against racism. Blacks used athletes as one of the most effective forums. Soon, black athletes found their own voice and protested issues of alienation and discrimination on predominantly white college campuses. In the spring of 1968, a new dimension was added to the blacks' fight. This fight centered on the attitudes of the Mormon Church as represented by Brigham Young University in the Western Athletic Conference. The Mormon faith was founded in 1830 by Joseph Smith. Smith wanted blacks educated, given equal rights, and freed from slavery. Black men were ordained into the priesthood until his death in 1844. After Smith's death, an elder apostle, Brigham Young, took control of the church. By 1848, there were certain scriptural limitations on admission into the Mormon priesthood. In these readings, it was said that Cain slew his brother, and because of that, the Lord put a mark upon him with the flat nose and black skin. Blacks were labeled children of Cain and were cursed and prevented from entering the priesthood. There were limited numbers of blacks attending BYU, and this facilitated the perception of segregation. Blacks were discouraged from attending BYU through the 60s. Black athletes began to examine BYU and LDS church policies and express opposition in schools in surrounding states. In 1969, this issue came to the forefront at the University of Wyoming. Blacks had been brought into Wyoming to bolster the athletic program. The UW football team had been picked to take the WAC title again in 1969. High hopes prevailed by all. This title was to follow the 1966 Sun Bowl and the 1968 Sugar Bowl visits. UW's team only had one conference defeat in the past 17 games, with 25 lettermen returning to play. 14 of these players were African Americans. With the impending game between UW and BYU on October 18, 1969, these 14 players felt it was time to take a stand on what they considered a racist practice by the Mormon religion and BYU. This action proved to be the first conflict of the Black 14. The Black Student Alliance, an organization for Negro students, held a meeting which black football players attended. It was brought to the players' attention that the Mormon religion prevented Negroes from entering the priesthood. Many of the players were unaware of this fact. The Mormon Church sponsors BYU. Wyoming was to play BYU the following week. Willie Black, chancellor of the alliance, would prove to be a driving force behind actions against BYU. The events of October 16, 1969 proved to live in infamy. Coach Lloyd Eaton, UW Athletic Director Jacoby, and University President Carlson received a letter from Willie Black and the Black Student Alliance. This letter made 4 demands, including that no money spent on or games scheduled with BYU, black athletes in the WAC protest against BYU, and whites join in on the protest. The BSA made clear this protest was not an attack upon the LDS Church, but rather upon an inhuman doctrine and a body which tends to demon a person solely on the basis of his skin color. Later that Thursday afternoon, Coach Eaton pulled Joe Williams, a black track captain of the team, aside and told him that he had received a letter from the BSA. He informed Williams of the team's rules against protesting. Eaton told him there was no way the players could wear the armbands on the field in protest of BYU. He instructed Williams to inform the other players of their conversation. Williams told Eaton the players felt strongly about this, but would work it out. The following morning on the 17th, the players went to the field house wearing armbands. They wanted to meet with Coach Eaton. Several accounts, including the Attorney General James Barrett, stated that Eaton and the players had quite a discussion. Coach Eaton was convinced the players were insistent on wearing the armbands, so he notified the players it was against the rules. They were off the team. Eaton saw the armbands as a challenge of his authority. Live testimony and affidavits of the black football players told another story. Williams stated that the group went into Eaton's office to talk to him. They decided to wear the armbands to the office, thinking it wouldn't be a problem since they were not on the field. Williams said, "We didn't wear them to challenge him. We went to Eaton for advice. He didn't give us a chance to say or discuss anything. The players felt Eaton settled without inquiring. He just dismissed us." This is Mel Hamilton's account.
We wanted to talk and try to work this thing out, but we didn't get a chance to say a word. He took us into the bleachers. He said, "Gentlemen, right as of now, you're no longer a Cowboy football player. And that was it. And then he went and started ranting and raving about, I took you off the streets, I took you off welfare. You're not going to be on my team, you can go play for your colored teams like Graham.
Eaton would consider reinstating the players on an individual basis. Since the issue with the Mormon Church was not an individual problem, the players would only meet as a group. UW officials and Governor Hathaway met and agreed they could not condone or support a demonstration against any religion or interfere with freedom of religion. Eaton had laid out team rules. They supported the coaching decision to dismiss the players. The players wanted to express their views. Highsaw was quoted saying, "If we can't be men, we can't be cowboys. I am a human being, student and athlete in that order. We needed to express our feelings. The players felt no one in Wyoming understood them. We may lose, but the gain is much greater, for in this we become men." On the morning of the BYU game, the Student Senate met and passed a resolution opposing Eaton's actions. A demonstration was held along the south walk of the field house. During the game, a Confederate flag was hoisted into the air. UW cheerleaders cheered, "We love Eaton." Even with 6 starters and 8 other players watching from the stands, Wyoming went on to crush BYU with the score 40-7. The University Faculty Senate wanted to investigate. Other departments demanded reinstatement. Some threatened to resign. Eaton wouldn't budge. Rumors were flying that the Black Panthers were on their way to Laramie to help. Eaton felt this planned protest was a plant job. These claims were never substantiated. At the next game, San Jose State players voted to wear multicolored armbands in protest for minority rights. As they wore the armbands, a small plane flew overhead, streaming a "Yay Eaton" banner. Word of the dismissal spread quickly. Protests and support for the players spread nationwide among other college campuses, especially among black students and athletes. Sports Illustrated even had an article about this incident. Just as the support for the athletes grew, so did the support for Coach Eaton. Everyone from the average citizen to the governor wore yellow Eaton armbands in support. He was even named UPI's Man of the Year. The university received over 14,000 telegrams and petitions with thousands of signatures in support of Eaton. Eaton had no plans to resign. With the season wrapping up with a 6-4 record, the coach eased up on his rules. This season was the worst showing since 1965. The remaining white players felt the sting of the dismissal. When asked about the dismal season, Jim Keenan replied,
A lot of people would say that's pretty petty, but if you're 20 years old or 18 or 19 years old and that's one of your goals in life, then it's pretty important to you.
A suit filed in U.S. District Court in Cheyenne against UW asked for reinstatement of the 14 athletes and $1.1 million in damages against future earnings. Waterman, an NAACP lawyer, represented the players who claimed a violation of First and 14th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution. The recent Supreme Court decision, Tinker v. Des Moines, permitted the students to wear armbands in protest against the Vietnam War. Wyoming's Attorney General, James Barrett, represented Coach Eaton and Wyoming. They claimed that the players were employees of the state. The protest would have violated the state and the U.S. Constitution separating church and state. An offer was put on the table for Eaton to meet with players individually. Waterman never relayed this offer. The ruling for Wyoming was upheld on appeal. Was this dismissal a violation of freedom of speech or religion? On June 1, 1978, after fasting and praying, LDS President Spencer W. Kimball received a revelation from God, extending the priesthood and temple blessings to all worthy male members of the church. 3 of the players returned to UW football. 10 graduated from other colleges. 4 played pro football. Hamilton returned only to school. Eaton coached for 1 more year, and Wyoming athletics had trouble recruiting and never recovered. Was the Black 14 a racial issue between blacks and the Mormon Church, a clash between black players and a white coach, an actual protest and violation of team rules, or just some young men trying to have their voice heard? Was their dismissal a violation of freedom of speech, or right of freedom of religion? These were the many conflicts of the Black 14.
Banking off of the northeast winds, sailing on summer breeze.
That was the day that I truly became a man.